Lord has started giving me a word on fasting this week, and I want to start in a very strange place. It's Psalms 144 and 1. It says, "Blessed be the Lord, my strength, which teaches my hands to war and my fingers to fight." Fasting is a weapon. Fasting is not just a supplication. It's not just a prayer. It's a weapon. As a matter of fact, it's one of the only effective weapon in certain situations. Not only are we kings and priests, but sometimes kings go to war. Priests have to war in their war room. We need to get ready for war this year. If you want to see deliverance, if you want to see things change, we got to get ready for war. We got to prepare ourselves. That's what fasting does. It builds you up. It builds you up for war. I'm going to get into a little heavier here so we can understand where I'm coming from. 2 Corinthians 10 and 3. Verse 3. 2 Corinthians 10, 3. As for though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. I'd like to change that. For though we walk in, when I say change it, I want to bring a little more emphasis. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war in the flesh. He says after, it kind of throws us off. We walk in the flesh, but we don't war in the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. What weapons was he referring to? What weapons was he referring to? The words that God gave us, the promises of God? Yes, that's a weapon, because we put God in remembrance of his own word. Prayer is a weapon. Worship is a weapon, but fasting is also a weapon. And the thing about that is, we're not pulling I love the way it fully explains the fact that although we are in the flesh, we're not warring in the flesh, nor are we warring after the flesh. I like the reason he says after the flesh is because we're not going after natural, physical enemies. We're not warring after the flesh. Although we're warring in the flesh, we're not warring after the flesh. We're not fighting a physical enemy. We're fighting in the spirit. See, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they're mighty through God in the pulling down of strongholds, spiritual strongholds. We have spiritual strongholds that we're breaking down with the weapons that we're fighting with. But we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and rulers of darkness and spiritual wickedness in high places. That is where the fight is. And so our weapons also have to be spiritual. Because it doesn't make any kind of sense. The spiritual things do not make sense to natural things. That makes no kind of sense for me to afflict my flesh and not eat for a couple of days. And how is that tearing down the kingdom of Satan? How is that being effective for the kingdom of Satan? I can't even think straight. How is this being effective naturally? But the weapons of our warfare are spiritual, because we're fighting a spiritual enemy. What is this thing rotting? What is this thing doing when I'm separating myself? I'm going to tell you right now, as a matter of fact, we're separating ourselves from our physical man. And our spiritual man is becoming stronger. Once the spirit leaves the body, it's all spirit. But when you decide to let your spirit override it's a choice of your will. When you tell your physical man that I am going to let my spirit man rise and suppress and subdue my physical man by not eating. I'm going to discipline him and let my spirit rise and separate myself from my body. Then I become more in the spiritual realm. Absent in the body, present with the Lord. So when you're absent in the body, or rather we subdue that body, your spirit man rises. And that's the work that's being worked as you're fasting. You're killing off your flesh. You're subduing your flesh. You're making his influence on this physical man, this 1 part, 2, 3 part person that you are. You're making the physical part of him smaller and smaller. And the voice of the physical man smaller and smaller. And then you hear the voice of the spirit. God is a spirit. And they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. This is a spiritual worship, fasting, and it's a spiritual weapon. Fasting wrought a spiritual manifestation. First, it doesn't even make sense in the natural. But why is it that not only Christians fast, other religions fast? The Muslims are known to fast. And other religions are fasting to false gods. But what are they doing? They're separating themselves from this physical world and tapping into something more spiritual. It works. It's a spiritual law. Separate from the body, present with the Lord, or present in the spiritual realm. I wanted to elaborate on this, but the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. And carnal speaks to being physical, temporal, fleshly. That's what you have when you talk about carnality. It's temporary, it's physical, and it's fleshly. It's all right within your face. But again, it's not physically naturally understood. Strongholds, although they can have physical manifestation, be it addiction, be it all sorts of things, a stronghold in your life, it has a spiritual root. But you can't uproot it physically. You have to uproot it spiritually. Fasting breaks strongholds. 2 Timothy 2:3. It says, "Thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. No man that warreth entangleth himself in the affairs of this life, that he may please him that have chosen him to be a soldier. And if a man strive for masteries, yet is he not crowned, except he strive lawfully. And the husbandman that laboreth must be first partaker of the fruits. Consider what I say, and the Lord give thee understanding in all things." What it's saying here is that we're warriors. We're warriors for God. Endure hardness as a warrior for God, as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. So fasting isn't something that we may want to do, but we have to endure hardness as a good soldier. Fasting is not something that I like to do. But what it's saying, it's not talking particularly about fasting, but for those of us who don't like doing it, understand that it comes with the territory. Endure hardness as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. No man that warreth entangleth himself. Talking about separating from the world. These are the reasons you fast. Sometimes we have to break that entanglement from the world. You know, people talk about in the world, they go on what they call a sabbatical. They go away from their life for days or for months, I've heard. But fasting is that sabbatical while you're in the world. It's separating yourself from the world. No man that warreth can be entangled with the affairs of this life, that he may please him that have chosen him to be a soldier. When you need to separate yourself from the affairs and the things that are going on in this world sometime in order to hear instruction, in order to just separate yourself. Like, I'm telling you one thing. I don't care how much money is in your bank account. When you fasting and you ain't eating, it doesn't make a difference. Because when you can't eat, you can't eat. I don't care how much money you got. I don't care how close food is or how far food is away from you. When you cannot eat, you cannot eat. It don't matter. You know, some people just got paid, just got that stimulus, and boom. You know what I mean? And you feel like you got money, but when you can't eat, you see what I'm saying? Fasting wrought this work where no matter what is going on in your life, this is the only thing on your mind, or this is the only thing that's happening in your world. Because you can't eat. And your physical body is separate from your mental, from your spiritual man. No matter what's going on in the world. And no matter what's going on in your job, no matter what's going on, when you're in your physical body, when you have not eaten, it don't matter how good your situation is. It doesn't matter how bad your situation is. And that is what it means to be separate from the world. Not be entangled in the things of this world. And I don't say fasting as if to suffer. I mean, when you're fasting, you're dedicating this thing unto God, and your mind, your mental space is so apart from your body. Whether you're hungry, yes, but your mental space is separate from your body. You're in a different plane. Although you're walking in this world, you're walking it out the way God wants you to walk it out, because you're separate. That's one of the first things we recognize about fasting.